the easier your path to Jannah will be. Those of you that have to give up your careers, you have to give up finances, you have to give up other things that you wanted to do, the more you give up, the easier shall be your path to Jannah. Whoever travels a journey on the path of knowledge, Allah will make the path to Jannah easy for him. And so, inversely proportional. The more difficult your journey for knowledge, the more you had to give up, the more you had to sacrifice, therefore the easier your path to Jannah will be. And then our Prophet went on, the hadith is very beautiful, it's a very long hadith. And our Prophet said that the malaika themselves, they lower their wings, they shelter their wings upon the talibul ilm. Notice, the talibul ilm. Who is the talibul ilm? The seeker of knowledge, out of pleasure for what they are doing. If the angels lower their wings on the talibul ilm, what do you think they're doing to the alim himself?
Allah.
If the angels are lowering their wings upon the talibul ilm, and the talibul ilm is from first year till you die, you will be a talibul ilm, by the way. You know this. You don't graduate and that's it, you finish. But the talibul ilm, the moment you undertake your journey for talibul ilm is when this blessing begins. You don't have to have mastered, al-hidayah or al-qaduri or al-madhi. You don't have to have done anything. You begin the journey and your niyyah is pure, then the angels will يَضْعُ أَجْنِحَتَهَا, lower their wings. Now this is symbolic and it is literal. Because there are certain angels in the other hadith we learned. Our Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّ لِلَّهِ مَلَائِكَةً سَيَّاحِينَ فِي الْأَرْضِ. That Allah Azza wa Jal has a category of angels. They are travelers in the land. Sayyah is tourist. Sayyah in modern Arabic is the tourist, right? And you have the department of siyaha in modern Arabic culture, which is the tourism industry. But in the hadith, sayyah doesn't mean tourist here. It means there are angels whose job is to tour the world. Not for sightseeing, but to find righteous people. And when they find them, khalas, you've arrived at the destination. So they lower their wings because they've arrived at the destination, right? So they're flying around. They're looking for the righteous. And there's a category of righteous people. When they find them, khalas, they stop flying around. So what do? They lower their wings. And of course, the lowering of the wings is literal in that they stop flying around, they come, and of course metaphorical, because when the angels surround you, then what does that mean? What does that indicate? As we know, the presence of the angels itself is barakah, it is sakina. The presence of the angels expels the shayateen. The presence of the angels comforts the heart. The presence of the angels brings about Allah's rahmah. So the talibul ilm, automatically the quality of his life or her life will increase. The quality of spirituality will automatically increase if the niyyah is there, because they are surrounded by angels. And then our Prophet ﷺ said, and every single creation of Allah, so much so that even the ant in its hole and the fish in the ocean, they ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless the one who teaches mankind good. لَيُصَلُّونَ عَلَى مُعَلِّمِ النَّاسِ الْخَيْرِ. Why? Our scholars mention that even the animals recognize that mercy will only come from the Sharia, and who teaches the Sharia. Even the animals recognize that peace will only come from knowledge. And so the animals, so much so, the Prophet said, even the ant in its ant hole and the fish in the ocean, they are asking Allah to bless the teacher of mankind. The creation loves the one who teaches mankind good. The creation wants that person and wants that person to succeed. So Allah Azza wa Jalla's creation wants you to succeed. It is shaitan and your nafs that is your enemy. The creation wants you to undertake your path. And then our Prophet ﷺ said, this is the conclusion of the hadith. And of course this is a power. It's one hadith, all of it is one hadith, is in it. Jami' al-Tirmidhi in the book of knowledge, in the chapter of the blessings of knowledge. So look this up, it's a beautiful hadith. Then the Prophet ﷺ said, وَإِنَّ فَضْلَ الْعَالِمِ عَلَى الْعَابِدِ. The superiority of the alim over the abid. The alim, you know. The abid. Now, pause here. If our Prophet ﷺ is describing somebody as an abid, as a worshipper, then what do you think his level of ibadah is going to be? You think he's the guy who's barely practicing the 5 salawat on time and thinking is not a big deal? Is that the abid? The one whom our Rasul and Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam calls an abid. What do you think is his level of ibadah? his Quran, his dhikr, his tahajjud, his salah, his khushu'. What do you think when he is being described as an abid by the Sayyidu and the Imam al-Muttaqeen is calling him an abid? That's a person we can't even imagine. Yet, what did our Prophet say? The alim, the superiority of the alim over the abid is like the superiority of the qamar over all of the other stars. Now, that's the end of the hadith. Ponder over this beautiful analogy. Wallahi, this is min jawami' al-kalim, that only a Nabi could say. The most powerful, beautiful symbolism. How many stars are in the sky? Tell me. How many stars? Billions. You can't even count them. And aren't stars beautiful? Right? Aren't they beautiful? Don't they shine? Don't they glimmer? They're stars. An abid is a star. An abid is a star. How many moons do we have? One. When one moon comes out, what happens to all the stars? Disappears. Blocked out. All the stars put together, how much light do they give us in the middle of the night? Tell me. Not much? Or
zero?
Nothing. All the millions and billions of stars put together, they're beautiful to look at up there. But in reality, they have nothing to do with me down here. I can't do anything with them. They might have gone high, and that's the abid. That is exactly the abid. The abid has gone high. He's a star. Great. Allah blesses him. But one alim can change the world. 1 billion abids can't change the world. One alim can make a nation rise or fall. One alim can change the course of history. And 1 billion abids could not do that in and of themselves without the alim. One alim comes along and he literally blocks all of the abid, and the light from that one alim. Now, I don't know if you guys, obviously living in the cities is a problem. Living in the cities, you're not connected with nature. How many of you have ever been away from any natural, away from any, artificial lights when the moon is shining in the middle of the night? Okay, I have been in the middle of the desert between Mecca and Medina on one occasion, and it just so happened again we were just outside the car and we just shut off and we were just sitting there and we shut all lights off and it was a full moon. In the middle of the desert, full moon, I swear to you, I saw this with my own eyes, the moon was so powerful I can see my shadow on the ground. And I think if anybody goes and you will see this yourself. When there's no blockage of the moon is so powerful, in the middle of the night you see your shadow. That's one moon versus all of those stars put together. So why is this the case? Because the alim changes people. The alim is a mover and a shaker. The alim benefits others, whereas the abid only benefits himself and herself. And in the process of becoming an alim, the brutal fact of the matter is, generally speaking, your level of ibadah will not be to the level of that abid. You can't, because when the abid might be doing extra nafil, you're doing fiqh and aqidah and tafsir and Arabic and whatnot, okay? When the abid is doing dhikr, you're conjugating verbs. But if your niyyah is good and pure, then the reality is that that worship is more pleasing to Allah than the ibadah of the abid. Think about that. So you all have undertaken a very, very big journey. And it is definitely a journey that has its benefits, but also has serious potential harms. So it is important that, first and foremost, you purify your intention for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, hadith is in Sunan ibn Majah, Man talaba al-ilma, whoever seeks knowledge, liyumari bihi sufaha, and his intention is to argue with the ignorant people, right? To show that he's superior to the ignorant people. Or yubahi bihi al-ulama, or to boast amongst the scholarly credentials. He's got the scholarly credentials. He's like showing himself off. Or yuzayyinu bihi al-majalis, to bring beauty in gatherings. He is the star of the gathering. Wherever he or she goes, quoting you pearls, giving you these things, and he's the, as we say in English, he's the center of attention, right? That's where the center of attention comes. So look at these three niyyahs that he mentioned. Whoever seeks this religious knowledge in order to impress the people around that are juhal, and he's like, wow, he's the big guy, he's the big shot. Or to get into that scholarly clique, and therefore make himself or herself out to be in that type of gathering, right? Or to become the center of attention wherever he or she goes, right? The Prophet said, فَالنَّارُ النَّارُ. Let him prepare for anna, let him prepare for anna. We ask Allah Azza wa Jalla to purify ours and brothers and sisters, it's a constant struggle. It's a constant struggle. Niyyah and ikhlas is never something that you can just master and go on. On the contrary, the higher you go, the more difficult it becomes. The more famous you are, the bigger the battle it is. So when you start this path, you had better learn these realities and start to prepare. And let me be brutally honest with you. If you cannot pass the battles of today, you're not going to pass the battles of tomorrow. If you cannot pass the battles of today when you're first, second, third, fourth, fifth year at the seminary in Dallas, you are not going to pass the battles 5, 10 years from now. And the sad news, if you do pass the battles of today, there's no guarantee you're going to pass the battles of tomorrow. And you can ask any sheikh and any hadith. It's a constant struggle until you die. As Sufyan ibn Uyayna said, I have never battled anything more severely than my niyyah. It changes on me 90 times a day. Keeps on, I have to keep on checking, pushing the switch again. Keep on checking my niyyah. It's a never-ending struggle until you die. And I wanted to just share with you some basic tips. How much time do I have? I have no idea. Huh? What is your schedule like? I don't want to take up like Okay, just 5-10 minutes, some basic tips, because you are tulab al-ilm and whatnot. So I wanted to share with you. First and foremost, after the spiritual advice of ikhlas and whatnot, first and foremost what I advise all of you to do is to make sure that you know your Quran and your basic sunnah. You will not be a talib al-ilm until you know the Quran and the sunnah. These are the sources of our religion, okay? I mean, honestly, how can you consider yourself teaching fiqh when you wouldn't be able to correct somebody who made a Quranic mistake? Think about that. And I don't want to, I know not everybody can be a hafiz, fair enough, even though frankly that should be a goal of every Muslim, much less a talib al-ilm, should be a goal, okay? It should definitely be in your minds, by the way, and you should never stop trying. And again, I don't want to harp over this point because I don't want anybody to feel bad about themselves, but at the end of the day, Allah clearly says, بَلْ هُوَ آيَاتٌ بَيِّنَاتٌ فِي صُدُورِ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْعِلْمَ. Allah describes the Quran as being in the hearts of those with knowledge. So if you really want to be of those with knowledge, this is the Quran. I mean, what more do you want? بَلْ هُوَ آيَاتٌ بَيِّنَاتٌ فِي صُدُورِ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا. Allah describes the hifd of the Quran as a phenomenon linked with the people of knowledge. So I understand not everybody can be a hafiz, and if you're not a hafiz, you can still be a good talib al-ilm. I'm not denying that, but it should be in your niyyah that I will memorize the Quran. And you know what? Where there's a will, there's a way. And the Quran is 604 pages in the printed edition, and if you memorize half a page, 5 lines, 1 line a day, like a centipede, you're going to get to the end of the race eventually, okay? So consistency. But Quran and basic hadith, this needs to be done. Please understand, if you don't know the basics of the Quran and hadith, you're never going to be a talib al-ilm. You need to know the sunnah. And the sunnah is much more, at some level, more difficult than the Quran. So I advise you 2 or 3 books definitely that you need to have. Amongst them for spirituality is Riyadh al-Salihin al-Imam al-Nawawi. Make sure that, of course, the 40 hadith is given. That's like, you should have done that even before coming. If you haven't done that, do it in 2 days. Like, memorize it. You need to know the 40 hadith. Huh? Okay, that's fine. That's fine. So it should be done. That should be a given. Like 40 hadith is. I'm not trying to make any. I don't know your curriculum. I'm sorry, guys. I don't mean to like. Huh?
It's my class.
Okay.
You're promoting
Okay, I'm not trying to like make anybody feel as if, I'm just saying, raise the bar, okay? So 40 hadith should be done. If you're doing it now, great, realize that's like level 1. That's like kindergarten in hadith, okay? That's the very basics where you got to do. At a level of a seminary, seriously guys, honestly, at the level of a seminary, 2 books have to have been read. Memorized is a big thing, I understand, but read and understood and known. And they're volumes. Each one is 1 volume, not that big. Bulugh al-Maram and Riyadh al-Salihin. Okay? A real talib al-ilm should know these 2 books. If not memorize them, at least have them handy and have gone over them once or twice. Okay? Bulugh al-Maram of Ibn Hajar is the book, the most famous book of hadith that deals with Islamic law. The ahadith that deal with Islamic law. You should know the ahadith that deal with Islamic law. Bulugh al-Maram. And that's a little bit more advanced. You start off with Riyadh al-Salihin. Riyadh al-Salihin is basically the book you start off with after the 40 hadith al-Nawawi. Read Riyadh al-Salihin cover to cover. You can't expect somebody to spoon feed it to you. It's too much. You'll have to read it. You'll have to be on your own, okay, to do that. Riyadh al-Salihin, you all know Imam al-Nawawi. Okay, it is 1 volume book. It's not that long. And you can finish it, every day read 10, 15, 20 hadith. You'll finish it in 1 semester. And keep on going over it. I teach Riyadh al-Salihin daily when I'm in Memphis. That's what I do for the people in the masjid. Every day I do Riyadh al-Salihin. And we go over it. When I finish it, I'm going to finish it in a few weeks. I'll start all over again. It's something that is one of the most blessed books of hadith. And then Bulugh al-Maram for the hadith al-Ahkam, they are called. The hadith of Islamic law. So you need to know your Quran. You need to know your Quran hifzan wa tajweedan, by the way. Both, right? And if you're not going to be a hafiz, there is no excuse for not knowing your tajweed. There is there's no compromise there. You had better learn how to recite the Quran, okay? You had better learn what is the proper enunciation. There is no ilm without the Quran. So tajweed is mandatory. وَالْأَخْذُ بِالتَّجْوِيدِ حَتْمٌ لَازِمُ مَنْ لَمْ يُجَوِّدْ الْقُرْآنَ فَهُوَ آثِمُ. You had better learn your tajweed. And then obviously, if you're able to, memorize the Quran, but put it in your niyyah to do so. And then the books of hadith. This is the first advice. Quran and hadith has to be your primary. Secondly, obviously, the purpose when you're beginning your ilm is that you have, mashallah, your mashayikh and teachers. Excellent. They're going to give you your summarized fiqh and tafsir and hadith. That's needed, okay? What will separate the true talib al-ilm from the mediocre one is that the notes from your teacher are your stepping stone and ladder to the classical books, okay? You need you can't just jump into any advanced book of Aqidah and Fiqh. That's understood. We've all been there, right? You need, Shaykh Abdul Nasir. You need Mufti Hafs al-Kamani. You need, all of your mashayikh, every one of them. And the goal is that your shaykh is reaching down and giving you a hand up, okay? Now, once they've done that, you need to grab onto the ladder. They've done their job. Now you need to go above. By above, I don't mean them. You're not going to do that immediately. I mean above the level they're giving you, right? You need to go above. How do you do that? Try your best, as much as you can, to connect what you've studied with the classical books. Okay? So, what are you doing in fiqh? Which book are you doing in fiqh? Al-Quduri. Okay. So, Al-Hidayah of Marghinani, right? Yeah. So, you're doing Quduri and Hidayah al-Marghinani. You have the text, obviously, right? Okay, excellent. Have some shuruh as well. Have some advanced shuruh as well. And you're not going to be able to do all of it. Understood. I understand that. I've been through this. You're not going to do the whole... But at least for 1 or 2 issues that interest you, that you find your mind going intriguing, like, I like that. Go and look up multiple books in the classical sources. Why? Because you need to be able to navigate those books on your own eventually. And unless and until you learn to navigate while you're with your mashayikh, you're not going to be able to learn afterwards, okay? You need to learn from now. How do you understand this phrase? Or what if something seems contradictory? Or any other issue that's going to come to you. So from now, you need to be able to go beyond what is simply found in the mulakhasat, the mudhakirat, or whatever your mashayikh give you. That's the basic level. That's fine, and you need that. Of course you need that. That's why you're here. But make sure you have resources and references and go to the higher level and try your best to even look it up directly. So believe you me, even looking up a hadith from its source, the amount of pleasure and ilm you're going to get is nothing like writing it from your teacher. I ask you a simple project on your own. Go find the hadith that I told you of Tirmidhi and look it up. Okay? Go find it yourselves today. Okay? Make that as your personal homework. Go find it today in a Jami' of Tirmidhi. It's not going to be that difficult. I'm not going to give you more than that. Learn how to navigate through these books, right? Surely you have Tirmidhi in your library, right? Yeah, okay. Nobody tell anybody else where it's found. You should find it on your own. Please don't Google, please don't Google, please. Look it up on your own, okay? Why? Because another fa'idah of flipping through the books is what? Who else can tell me a fa'idah of flipping through the books? Yes?
See things that you weren't looking for. You find other narrations.
Excellent. You find other narrations that you weren't looking for and you're like, oh wow, this is amazing, right? You need to be able to go beyond just what is spoon-fed to you. And in order to do that, you need to go back to the classics, okay? You need to go back to the original sources. Okay, another point therefore, based on that, and by the way, these are just coming, I don't have a list in my head, I'm just giving you my own personal advice, so it might be a little bit disjointed. This should have come before, I guess. But anyway, it's the same thing. Inshallah, it's all beneficial. Inshallah, I hope. Make sure that you acquire your personal library. Don't rely on the library of your institute or your mashayikh. You need to acquire your own books. And start with, obviously, your references, your sources that you need, and then work your way to what I call the ummahat, or this is called the ummahat, the sources of knowledge. What are the sources of tafsir? You need to have tafsir ibn Kathir. Okay? What are the tafsirs you're doing? I don't know. But each one has a list, there's a priority. Every madrasa has its system, which I'm going to get to in a future point, inshallah. That's fine. Get the sources of your madrasa. And then beyond your madrasa, we're going to come to that point as well. Get the sources. The sources of hadith are, by the way, pretty standard. You had better have Bukhari and Muslim eventually in your library. I mean, you understand what I'm saying? How can you be a talib al-ilm and you don't have Bukhari and Muslim? Okay? Some people begin their knowledge very early, mashallah. So she's already on her path of knowledge, mashallah. Okay? She's very eager to come and get her knowledge, mashallah, mashallah. Cute babies are very distracting, mashallah. Mashallah. Assalamu alaikum. Mashallah. Assalamu alaikum. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. What's her name? Radiyya, mashallah. Mashallah. May Allah Azza wa Jal. Oh, mashallah. No wonder she's the cutest baby here. It's like, mashallah. Okay, alhamdulillah. May Allah.
I've been saying that for a while.
Okay, alhamdulillah. Now you have.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. May Allah bless her and her parents and the students of her parents as well. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Inshallah. So make sure you acquire a library, okay? So as I said, you better have Bukhari and Muslim. Like, how can you not have the ummahat of hadith? You better have the major sources of fiqh as well, okay? And when I say major sources of fiqh, I mean not just your basic level of Matan Qaduri, which is going to be a little booklet. Go intermediate level, go higher level, and then have encyclopedic works that you're not expected to read cover to cover, but you need to learn how to swim through on your own. Have encyclopedic works, okay? And again, we're going to come to this point. Every madrasa has its own system and whatnot. So what are your encyclopedic works? I don't know, Fatawa Alamgiri or whatever it might be. But your teachers will tell you. Ask your teachers, like, what do I need to do? What is an intermediate level? What is advanced intermediate? And then there are the ummahat and the maraji. These are like the 20, 30 volume books that nobody reads unless you're like that one guy at Deoband that's actually teaching. Otherwise, nobody reads those 30 volumes. I'm just telling you. Don't feel that those 30 volumes, anybody reads them. But you know what they do read? The sections they're interested in. And they learn how to navigate through those sections, okay? And until you have your own physical copy, now I'm old school, guys, I'm old school. I don't like PDFs, and I don't like search libraries online. They're fine to look up some things, but you need to have, this is my old school, my suggestion. You need to have some physical books in your library. To be honest, even being around books psychologically changes me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I need to be, if you go to my library in Memphis, it's literally, alhamdulillah, 10,000 books around me. You need that ambience to feel. That's my man cave, if you go in. Anyway, going to my tangents here. You need to have your books. You can't be a genuine talib al-ilm without, why? Because Google or whatever the PDFs are, you're never going to get the fa'idah outside your one issue. You're going to search for it, you're going to find it, that's it. But suppose you actually needed to look it up, right? And you glance through volume 7, you're flicking through the pages, you're like,
Man, I didn't find what I wanted, but in that half hour that it took me to go through, I had 20 benefits here. Close that, open a volume 8, and then I get to the chapter. I'm happy, okay? But even in that chapter, I have to go before and after. I have to get other benefits. So what is the net result? Your one search has actually broadened your mind, and you've gained so much other good that you would never have gained if you just typed it into Google and said you find the exact quote on volume 8, page 257. What a waste of time, right? What have you done? Whereas the 45 minutes it took you to get to that book actually reading, mashallah, tabarakallah, your mind has changed from that. Okay, so my advice again is to basically make sure you have a solid book. Anyway, I know time is limited. Let me just get to my final point, inshallah, and then I know you guys have your other classes as well. So the final point, and let me be frank here, and I know the mashayikh agree with me on this point. Okay, I know they agree with me, and that's why I'm bold enough to say it here. Look, when you are studying in any institute or madrasa or philosophy, understand that to be successful, you need to buy into that philosophy and madrasa. Okay? You need to understand that yes, this is the best way for me at this time. In Medina, we have our own philosophy and curriculum and Aqidah, and Azhar, they have their own. In Darul Uloom and Deoband, they have their own. And in order to really become a talib al-ilm, you need to go through a paradigm. Okay? You have to go through a philosophy. And when you're in that zone and in that bubble, then you are in that zone and in that bubble. And you absorb everything and you respect the tradition. At this stage, you are not qualified to become a critic. And anybody who thinks they're qualified, they're on the road to disaster. And I speak from 25 years of experience. You need to be sympathetic and loyal to your paradigm. Now, loyalty only means that you appreciate it and you respect it. Doesn't mean that you have to defend it blindly. No, don't get involved in others. Right now, you're in one system, one philosophy. Be with it. Understand it, and at some level, master it. However, here's the big however. Firstly, realize, even as you're in that paradigm and bubble, it's not the only paradigm in the world. And Islam is broader than one paradigm. Islam is broader than any one system out there. Medina, Al-Azhar, Islamabad, Timbuktu, Darul Uloom, guess what? They're all Muslims. And there's taqwa and iman in all of those paradigms. And there's good people, and yes, sometimes bad people as well, but there's good people in every one of those systems. So even as you are loyal to your paradigm, make sure you never look down at others. Make sure you never are dismissive of others. Okay? So don't become a critic of your own or any tradition. At this stage, understand, look, this is easiest for me. This is a system that has flourished, in some cases, and I guess in this case, the Deobandi tradition obviously goes back to 1858 with the fall of the mutiny. Well, understand, you should know, that's later history, you're going to study it later on, but understand, every tradition began and evolved over a period of time, and that's fine, it needs to. And at some level in your lives, you're going to have to basically enter one system and rise up in it. While you're in that system, appreciate it, be loyal to it. And by loyalty, as I said, doesn't mean that you look down, it simply means you appreciate what you have and then master it to the best of your capability. Once you move on, at that stage, things change. And if you look very carefully at the most successful ulama and du'at in the globe, not just in Dallas, not just in North America, in the world, they have always moved on from their systems and appreciated other systems. Islam is broader than any one paradigm. Now there are those ulama that are going to be wed to that paradigm till they die. And maybe they'll be the most beloved within that paradigm. But they're never then going to be successful outside of it. And so their good and their khair is restricted to one group. I think in North America we don't have the luxury of that attitude right now. Maybe in 100 years it's good for some of us to it's healthy, and in the end of the day, Darul Uloom, Medina, Azhar, you need to have pure Deobandis, pure Medina guys, pure Azhari guys for their locals. That's fine. And amongst that paradigm, they are the most venerated and respected. That's understandable. And there's khair in that as well. But be careful that in this climate of North America, when there's so many other groups and other whatnot, that we never have this attitude that my paradigm represents Islam. Because that's very dangerous. That's very dangerous. Islam is beyond even a firqa or a madhab, as we all should know at this stage. The religion of Islam historically has been encompassing many different people, many different ideologies, and no doubt some are closer to the truth than others, but at the end of the day, no one system is synonymous with Islam. And as you go through the system right now, appreciate it, be loyal to it, but realize you're not wed to it for life. You need to understand there are people outside of that paradigm, and you need to benefit them. You need to help them. And the helping them is not to bring them into your paradigm. It is to bring them to Allah and His Messenger. See, that's the whole point. قُلْ هَذِهِ سَبِيلِي أَدْعُو إِلَى اللَّهِ. Our loyalties are not to any individual or any firqa or any madhab or any group. Our loyalties are to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to the Messenger. قُلْ هَذِهِ سَبِيلِي أَدْعُو إِلَى اللَّهِ عَلَى بَصِيرَةٍ أَنَا وَمَنِ اتَّبَعَنِي. We call to the Sirat al-Mustaqim. Never forget that what we are doing now is simply a mechanism for us to come closer to Allah so that we can then bring other people closer to Allah. That is the goal. And in that, insha'Allah ta'ala, you will be the most beneficial to yourselves and to the ummah as well. And that's why I said historically, if you look at it, the most successful ulama have always been a part of a tradition, mastered the tradition, and then organically moved on and basically, been people that have benefited the entire ummah. I mean, there's so many examples to give. Shaykh Abul Hasan Nadwi comes to mind from the Indian subcontinent. I mean, this is the perfect example, He was from Nadwa, his name is Nadwi, right? But he realized, my paradigm is great, but I need to be broader than this, okay? In Saudi, my teacher, Shaykh Salman al-Awda, I think he is one of the greatest ulama alive. One of the reasons he is so beloved and respected, he's currently in jail right now, but one of the reasons he broke away from the paradigm he was in. And he realized, there are people that need to, there's a khair and a barakah that comes when you have this open-mindedness. And I want you to make sure that inshallah we, and alhamdulillah, North America by and large, this is the way it is right now. And I want to make sure that it stays that way, inshallah. We have this open-mindedness and tolerance. Final point, and then we're done, inshallah ta'ala, is that as you continue in your ilm and whatnot, make sure that every one of you has a personal amount of ibadah between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that nobody knows about, okay? Now, realistically speaking, you will not be able to be as abid as the abid of the hadith. It's not going to happen because you are already juggling between your families. Some of you might even have careers and jobs. I'm sure some of you have work. Some of you have children. Some of you have parents to take care of. So you're juggling between all of that. On top of that, now you have these 5-6 hours of curriculum, plus 3 hours of homework a day, plus other things go on. Plus you're human beings. You need to relax and rest. So understand that yes, it is true. Your level of ibadah might not be as much as you would like it to be. But that doesn't mean you just take it down to a mediocre level. Even if it's something small but with quality. أَحَبُّ الْأَعْمَالِ. What is it? أَدْوَمُهَا وَإِنْ قَلَّ. Make sure that there's something that is truly spiritual in your life. Qira'at al-Quran needs to be there. Okay? Your adhkar and wird needs to be there. Also good deeds that no one knows about, not even your spouse. There's got to be good deeds between you and Allah that Allah knows about, because you need to keep on polishing your heart. You need to keep on making sure that you don't get an element of kibr and whatnot. So do some deeds, whether it's the smallest charity, whether it's helping somebody that nobody knows, just do something so that you maintain that level of humility in front of you and Allah, and realize that we are all muqassirun, we are all falling short and mudhnibun, we are all sinners. This is the reality. We're not going to overcome this. If it so happens that you slip in your studies or into a sin or something of this nature, don't cause this to make you so demoralized that you leave talab al-ilm. Ulama are human beings as well. And the greatest alim is still a human. And we all know this in painful reality. The greatest person of knowledge might also make a mistake. If you are treading that path, the fact that you might commit a sin or make a mistake, yes, you should feel sad and regret and remorse, remorse, but don't stop your talab al-ilm because of an imperfection. Because if you do so, then nobody will ever become an alim. Nobody will ever become an alim. Yes, feel guilty. I'm not saying feel guilty. Then use that guilt to, because what happens, and this is natural, you're like, I'm a hypocrite, man. I can't be a student of knowledge. I'm not good enough to be a preacher and teacher. Let me share with you a real fact. None of us are good enough. None of us. Do you think I am holy and righteous and pious? Then you are deluded. And this is Allah's blessings on me that He's covered my sins in front of you. Otherwise, if you knew, as Waqi' himself said, the famous Shaykh of Imam Muslim and whatnot, that if sins had a smell, none of you would be sitting around me. This is the Shaykh of Imam Muslim. If sins had a smell, you wouldn't be sitting around me. And another famous muhaddith said, if you really knew who I was, rather than taking notes, you would pelt me with stones. If this is what those great ulama are saying, then what do you think I am? I can assure you, they apply to me times 100. And that's not false humility. It is the truth, and every one of your teachers knows it's the truth. We are human. We are not perfect. We have our share of battling our sins and urges and desires, and sometimes we don't live up to what we practice and preach unto you. And that's a constant struggle. My point is, don't let a sin become such an impediment that you give up talabul ilm. Because perfection is something only Allah has. No one else has perfection. Perfection belongs to Allah. If Allah wanted us to be perfect, He wouldn't have made Homo sapiens. He would have made the angels. The angels said, why are you creating a species that is inherently sinful? So my point is, balance between the fear and the hope. Don't just say, khalas, I'm a sinner. No, realize, I'm not going to be perfect. The path to knowledge is tedious. I'm going to slip, I'm going to fall. Sometimes I will not live up to what I am preaching others on to do. Make sure that when that happens, you do some extra good deeds. وَأَتْبِعِ السَّيِّئَةَ الْحَسَنَةَ تَمْحُهَا. Follow up an evil deed with a good deed. Constantly purify your niyyah for the sake of Allah. And make sure you have a healthy dosage of private good deeds between you and Allah that nobody knows about. That's one positive sign. Now, when is the danger, the bell going off? You will find yourself that you're not doing good deeds at all unless it's in front of the people. Where you're literally living, a'udhu billah, a double life. Where in private you have no khair, no barakah, maybe even the salawat you're struggling with, whereas in public it is a whole different. That's where the red bells need to go off and you need to really check yourself. As for committing a sin or two, that's going to be a part of your life until you die. You're never going to be an angel. So don't let a sin cause you to stop in this journey of knowledge. And I say this because I know how it feels. We've been there, done that. If we stopped studying ilm because of feeling guilty for committing sins, none of us would be where we are right now. You can ask any of your teachers, okay? It's just a matter of constantly tawbah, istighfar, realize your mortality, and whenever people praise you, whenever people say anything good about you, just remind yourself of the sins that you do and humble yourself in your own heart. As long as your heart is humbled, as long as you know who you are, alhamdulillah, that will be a lot of khair in it. Jazakumullah khair for hosting me. It's always my pleasure to be, as I said, with students of knowledge. Wallahi, it makes my heart so happy to see knowledge being spread in these lands. It's such a, you are in a beautiful haven right now. This is a safety bubble you guys are in. MashaAllah, tabarakallah. This is a replication of what all of us have gone through overseas in a way that is obviously much larger and in some ways better and whatnot. That's understandable. I mean, when you're in Darul Ulum with 10,000 students and ulama that are far more knowledgeable than us, when you're in Medina, and so obviously, but you know what? For those of you that can't do this, subhanAllah, it's as if a small bit of that has been transported here to Dallas, right? A small bit of that is being replicated. And frankly, I'm jealous because it reminds me of my days. And this is a beautiful time. You will love it and enjoy it. The spirituality, the raw iman that is right here, right now, that you have. I'm going to tell you it's difficult to maintain afterwards. You can ask the people that have gone through that, okay? But you have it now. Enjoy it. Benefit from it. Make sure you quiz your teachers as much as you can. Squeeze every bit of knowledge that you can. And the only way you can do that is by asking questions. And the only way you can ask questions is to go beyond what they've told you. which is to go back to the books and my advice. Okay, so benefit as much as you can, and inshallah ta'ala, I pray that this is not the last time that I meet you all, and we can inshallah, I'm more than happy, inshallah, I can't say too much, but if you know what's happening, but inshallah, I'm more than happy to come a little bit more often to the campus, inshallah ta'ala, and whatever is beneficial, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair, and assalamu alaikum. Oh, question? Yeah, go ahead.
So, someone who has a PhD and is also an alim. So,
Don't call me an alim.
Just kidding.
Sufyan al-Thawri, somebody said to him, Ya alim. And he said, Al-alim alladhi yakhsha Allah azza wa jal. The true alim is the one who fears Allah. Why? Because Allah says, إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاء. It is the ulama who fear Allah. And Sufyan was saying, I don't fear Allah, don't call me an alim. So I am a talib al-ilm, like all of you. If I have some more years under my belt, it's because my hair over here has become white from studying for 25 years, but I'm still talib al-ilm. So you're saying I have talib al-ilm and I have a PhD. What's the question then?
The question is, as a Muslim American, we recognize how important it is to take this path of knowledge. But what is your advice for those who not only want to seek the highest form of education in Islamic knowledge, but also want to seek the highest form in secular education? Because a lot of times, if we are here and we defer to hear from, like law school or whatever the case may be, like what is your advice on balancing that? Because if you're full time in like law school, you can't be here. Like it's just not possible.
So Allah, can all the brothers hear the question? Yeah. Allah Azza wa Jalla created people differently, and people have different roles to play. Okay, so that's another point, that not everybody has to be an alim. Not everybody has to dedicate 10, 15 years of their lives for talabul ilm. Those that are able to, alhamdulillah. Those that can't, my phrase that I always say, if you can't become an alim, don't remain a jahil. That's all. If you can't become an alim, don't remain a jahil. There's always got to be some ilm in your life till you die. Some people can do it full time, but most can't. So those that can't, at least have some connection with ilm, and always have some ilm in your life, whether it's while you're driving the car, whether it's every week, attend a halaqah. There's got to be some ilm in your life. Also, with regards to secular degrees, definitely, I would encourage every one of you to have some type of education in the world that we live in, especially in the country that we live in, beyond just this seminary education. Whether it's engineering, whether it's law, whether it's accounting, whether it's medicine, whatever it might be, it's something very beneficial. And even if you want to be a full-time da'i and shaykh and alim, then still get an education for the sake of your own mind and for the sake of accreditation amongst the people. This is something that is very important. You will not be truly respected by the society. This is just the fact of life, until you've demonstrated to the society that you know what their society is. So my sincere advice to all of you is to make sure you have preferably a master's at the very minimal, preferably a master's. And those of you that want to do PhDs, very good, excellent. PhDs in Islamic studies, by the way, whoever wants to do that, talk to me after. That's a whole different ballpark altogether. And people don't know what they're getting into. But PhDs in any other field, excellent, definitely. And we need Muslims that, because you know what? It's not just the sake of your CV and resume. PhDs change your life. They change the way you think. You genuinely become an expert in some field. You become an authority. It's not just like the people think. No, you can't get a PhD in this country in any reputable institution without truly mastering a discipline. And in that, there's much khair and barakah and benefit. So definitely, those that are able to, I would strongly encourage you to, bachelor's I think is like fard ayn almost, but a master's is definitely something that you should think about in any field, counseling, sociology, history, or if you are interested in making sure you have a career outside of this, engineering, whatever it might be, Allah created all of us differently, and people have different talents and whatnot. And by the way, I need to say this as well, mashallah, there's so many sisters here. A lot of times sisters ask me what they should be doing if they have the luxury to do whatever they want to do, right? So if they have that luxury, one of the fields that we definitely need in our times is for our sisters who have trained in these types of seminaries to then go on and do women's studies. Okay, masters and PhD. to actually, because in my humble, I'm going into a whole different tangent here. In my humble opinion, one of the biggest crises we have right now is the crisis of liberalism, humanism, secularism, and a part of that is feminism. Okay? It is a crisis of a theological nature because it strikes to the very core. We just came back from a conference where we know this very well. It strikes to the very core of what it means to submit to Allah versus to submit to patriarchy and all of this whole notion there. So some sisters ask me, if I have the luxury, I don't really need my husband's, or I'm just saying my husband's earning money or whatever, I don't need to have a job. Is there something I can do of benefit to the ummah? And I say, if you feel qualified, and you need to feel qualified, you need to know who you are, because it is a dangerous field in its own way. If you feel qualified, if you feel that I can really and truly benefit the ummah, what we need are sisters who believe in the tradition and can then defend the tradition against the onslaught, which is vicious, that is taking place currently by segments. And liberalism is the bigger problem, but feminism within it is really its most vocal element. And Islam is deemed to be a backward, a patriarchal, misogynistic faith. And the fact of the matter is, any bearded guy cannot defend Islam, because automatically we're basically part of the patriarchy, mansplaining, whatever it might be. It's just the fact of the matter. I'm just being honest with you, which is why I very rarely speak about these issues, because it's moot. It's besides the point, even though I wish I could, but it's not going to be listened to, right? What we need are those who understand that it's not a competition between the genders. It is a competition with Allah Azza wa Jal. Submission is not it's not something that is basically vertical, or horizontal, it's vertical. Okay? We're not a matter of competing against one another. The both of us are submitting to the higher. And this needs to be defended and articulated by our sisters who understand. And it's something that can be done. And we need many people to do that. But anyway, you were asking me about PhD, so that's why this came up. Otherwise, you need to obviously have an interest. If you're not interested, then don't do it. Because to get a PhD in any field, you need to have some desire for that discipline. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. Okay. Any other quick questions before Mufti Sahab promises me the lunch that he promised me? So that's why I'm here, actually. Just kidding. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Yes. Any questions, brothers, sisters? Yes. Go. Can you raise your voice? Do I think art is a valid profession? Definitely. I mean, art is something that has been a part of any civilization in history. You can't have a civilization without art. Okay? These are things that come part and parcel with being of any society. So those of you that are interested, obviously it's problematic in terms of what you can and can't do, as you're aware, but still, within art there are so many disciplines that are completely Islamic. Obviously the most obvious one is calligraphy. That's definitely something that is a dying art in our times. It's a dying profession. We need, and calligraphy, mashallah, is completely gender neutral. Doesn't matter. It's a great field to excel in. But if by art you mean drawings and paintings, right? Or you mean calligraphy? What do you mean? Paintings? So obviously the issue comes of the human image. Architecture, of course. So again, I think there is a need for this. And see, here's the point. You guys right now are studying what are called the hardcore sciences, okay? Fiqh and tafsir and aqidah. And that's like the backbone of Islam. But realize there are peripheries. There are branches that go back, And you don't have to just be within the backbone. Like civilizations do not exist without literature, without poetry, without art. You can't have a history without historians and sociologists, right? So everyone has a role to play. And just because your passions aren't in advanced fiqh doesn't at all. You've done, alhamdulillah, a few years, you know your stuff, you can be a good Muslimah and teach others about it, but your passion lies in some other field. No problem. Excellent. We need people who follow the tradition to demonstrate how you can be a part of any other discipline and still follow the rules of Islam. So definitely go for it and show us. And again, acting is another thing, drama is another thing, right? We need people who are following the Sharia, demonstrating that there are halal alternatives to the filth out there. So part and parcel of being a Muslim and a part of a global civilization. Inshallah.
Jazakumullah khairan. So inshallah, appreciate everyone getting together, alhamdulillah, and taking the opportunity and benefit. Of course, appreciate Shaykh Yasir for coming and stopping by.
Jazakumullah
Inshallah.
khair, my
If
pleasure.
everyone can, inshallah, pray Salat al-Dhuhr and then head back to your classes, and we'll see y'all there in just a bit, inshallah.
Inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
You created everything.